Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into the massive shift happening in payments, moving from clunky, hardware-heavy systems to the incredibly frictionless digital world of SoftPOS. If you've been watching this space and wondering how merchant acquiring profitability is literally being re-engineered from the ground up right now, well, you're in exactly the right place. We're going to break down the unit economics, the radical margin shifts, and the strategic value capture that acquirers, ISOs, and fintechs are chasing today. Here is our roadmap. First, we'll ground ourselves in the acquiring ecosystem. Second, we'll enter the world of SoftPOS technology. Third, we'll see how the ecosystem actually connects. Fourth, we're tackling security and compliance. And finally, we'll break down the strategic choice modern acquirers face today. Section 1, the acquiring ecosystem and the true cost of payments. To truly grasp the disruption here, you have to look at the legacy economics. For online merchants, the investment is primarily software, building out robust payment gateways. But offline merchants, they have always required physical electronic data capture, or EDC terminals. And that is a huge bottleneck. Deploying a single legacy terminal can run anywhere from $300 to $600 in upfront costs. And that doesn't even touch the ongoing hardware operations, the maintenance, or the field support. It's a massive capital burden. And you have to support all that hardware. You need dedicated teams for underwriting, dispute management, accounting, and hands-on merchant support. When you stack this dense operational overhead on top of the high customer acquisition cost of shipping out physical boxes, traditional acquiring margins just get absolutely crushed, especially when you try to scale down to serve smaller merchants. The old way of doing things demands serious, heavy upfront investment in physical logistics, alongside complex partnerships with the major card schemes. You're constantly trying to balance interchange fees against massive operational capacity. Bottom line, it is a high-stakes, capital-intensive game that leaves very little room for error. Section 2. Enter SoftPOS technology, or as it's really known, the software revolution. This is where the model flips. By tapping into the NFC, the near-field communication tech already sitting inside everyday Android and iOS smartphones, SoftPOS turns a highly capital-intensive onboarding process into a high-margin digital software acquisition funnel. You are taking physical hardware completely out of the equation and replacing it with pure, highly scalable software-as-a-service distribution. Zero hardware cost. But it's not just about accepting a tap. This is where we deconstruct the profitability equation. SoftPOS is fundamentally a SaaS upsell engine. Sure, you get PIN on glass and dynamic QR codes, but the true margin comes from monetizing embedded services. Things like invoicing, inventory management, or instant payouts baked directly into the app. When you package processing with core business management software, you maximize your net revenue retention. It totally changes the margin waterfall. And because that hardware cost drops to zero, you suddenly unlock the massive long-tail market of micro merchants and gig workers. Think about it. Previously, these smaller players were simply unprofitable for acquirers. The high hardware customer acquisition cost just couldn't be justified by their lower lifetime value. But with instant hardware-free deployment, millions of unserviced merchants become highly viable, highly profitable targets overnight. Section 3. How the ecosystem connects and the invisible data flow. So what actually happens when a customer taps their card on a phone? Well, the invisible data flow is beautifully familiar. The tap is initiated on the device, the data routes to the acquirer or processor, it hits the card scheme, and finally it securely reaches the issuer for authorization. The clunky plastic terminal is gone, but the routing? It bounces through the exact same network nodes as a conventional transaction. This is a crucial takeaway for unit economics. Acquirers keep their gross processing revenue while simultaneously obliterating their hardware operating expenses. You eliminate the terminal provisioning, the physical shipping, the complex device management, and the hardware compliance costs, all while utilizing the exact same trusted, heavily regulated payment networks. It's a massive win for processing margins. Section 4. Security and compliance, and protecting the cloud. Of course, shifting away from physical hardware brings up the elephant in the room, security. How do you actually secure a commercial transaction on a consumer-grade smartphone? The answer lies in strict compliance standards, specifically PCI MPOC, which stands for Mobile Payments on Commercial Off-the-Shelf Devices. We are essentially taking the traditional hardware security modules and moving them securely into the cloud.
Because you don't have a physical security chip to rely on anymore, the system uses deep encryption, constant device integrity checks, and secure key management for things like PIN on glass. It creates a really fascinating fraud risk trade-off. On one hand, you completely eliminate physical terminal tampering and device theft. But on the other hand, you have to implement intense, continuous monitoring to protect against a much wider software attack surface.
Section 5. The strategic choice. Build versus partner.
Let's look at the strategic playbook for merchant activation. It's literally just contact the provider, complete basic KYC, download an app, and start accepting payments. This instant self-onboarding process lowers the customer acquisition cost to near zero. And because merchants can activate so incredibly fast, acquirers are seeing a significant reduction in early churn. The velocity of activation is a total game changer. But how do you actually roll this out? This is the classic build versus buy dilemma. Do you take on the heavy investment of building a proprietary SoftPOS app internally, or do you integrate a third-party SDK to get to market faster? Right now, we're seeing smart players adopt a hybrid fleet strategy. They are transitioning their SMB clients to 100% SoftPOS to radically cut costs, while maintaining traditional or hybrid setups for their massive enterprise clients. Ultimately, as the friction of hardware literally vanishes, the defining question for any modern acquiring business is simply this: how fast are you willing to adapt to survive in a software-first world? Do you have the internal capacity to build this infrastructure? Or is partnering with agile third-party innovators the key to defending your market share? I hope this explainer gave you the strategic insights to start answering that for yourself. Thanks for joining me, and keep questioning the ecosystem.